Order. And Mr. Moody, would you lead us in prayer, please?
Dear Heavenly Lord, we thank this time this day, Lord, we pray that we have you and your saving grace, Lord, that this freedom having with the men and women who fight in the military, Lord, so pray that you bless them. Thank you for this day, Lord. I just thank you for the opportunity to work here in our school system, Lord, and it's just a good place, Lord. And I just want to ask you to be at the school board today, so you can make decisions, and we hear reports, Lord, and it's always doing everything to glorify you and do what's in the best interest of all our kids here. Thank you for all you've done for us, Lord. Do the best. So,
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
thank you. Before we approve the agenda, one item was left off in Roman numeral 3. Principal and director's report should be added at the top of the list, and I just call that A1 and personnel A2. Now, do I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Do I have a second? All in favor? Any opposed? Approval of prior minutes, September 7th, 2021. Do I have a motion to approve those? Approved. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Floor is now open for public comment period.
there is no one here.
Do I have a motion to close public comment period? Do I have a second? All in favor? Any opposed? Reports and discussion items. Principal and director's report. I don't care who's first. Tanya, since you're on the front row, I'll let you go first.
I'll take my mouth down. Kevin's going to talk a little bit about the building, what's going on with the building. That's not came to our meeting last week. We've got some delays that are happening, unforeseen things with the foundation, but they completed everything on the inside. They were able to put down the tile a couple of weeks ago. We've got to have some changes in the doors on the inside and some like the color of the tile. They put down the wrong color, but they're making that good. So it's moving along, and we're still real pleased with the progress, but Kevin will have more details with you when he does his update. We had parent-teacher conferences. We were able to, they were a little bit different this year since parents didn't come to school. We made contact with parents, mostly focusing on kids who were failing 2 or more classes, and I think our teachers have reported that we were able to contact about 35% of our students' families. So that was, pretty good with them not coming in. We had our first reward day. The middle school does a positive behavior support program where the kids start out with 100 points each month, and we try to focus mostly on positive behavior. For minor infractions, they can lose points, and then at the end of the month, the kids that have 90 or more points left, they get to participate in a fun day. So we had our first one week before last, and we only had 16 kids that had lost too many points and didn't get to participate. So I think that was a pretty good number also. The TikTok challenge that you have been seeing on the news and hearing about, we went through that for about a week at the middle school and had some bathrooms, messed up, nothing that had to be replaced or any damage that was done that cost any money, but we did have a little bit of that going on, so we were able to isolate who had done it. We had parents in, so that has stopped, but we did have our little small amount of that happening at the middle school. At this point, I have been able to observe all of our initially licensed teachers have been in their classroom. I'm very pleased with all of them. I think they're doing a wonderful job. Mandy Adams was our beginning teacher of the year at the middle school, and I was just in her classroom this morning and very well served. She's just doing a fabulous job. athletics, we have about 2 more weeks left of volleyball and cross country. Volleyball will have a game today at 4 against Cherokee, and the cross country team will have a meet tomorrow here at home, and basketball will start in about 2 weeks. So everybody's been working really hard together to try to figure out gym situation and practices since we're down on gym. So that's kind of been a big puzzle piece, but everybody's working really good together to try to figure that out. So
Ms. Wash?
yes,
You said Mandy Adams was what now?
our beginning teacher of the year.
Explain that to me.
Ms. Louise is going to talk about that.
Okay, now let me ask you another question. Do you have an update on the trip?
On the trip, right now we have about 42 kids that have signed up for it. We have a bus reserved, and we're just working on fundraisers and starting planning on trips. So,
Thanks,
so that's where we are right now.
Thank you.
Ms. Hoover.
Yes.
Okay.
At the elementary school, we are very proud of our kids. In our annual day of caring, that failed while we were 100% remote. And so we delayed it, but we still wanted to do something with our kids to show a care for our community. And that's Miss Knight's theme for the beginning of school, is fall in love with your community. And when the kids returned from remote, we extended a school-wide coin drive to raise money for the Mikey Oliver family. And our children, preschool through grade 5, raised $3,775.86 for this family. And third grade was the winning grade level that raised the most, so we're going to give them a grade level pizza party. But I think that shows the caring heart that our families and our children have for people who are going through a hard time in this community. And so I'm very proud. I mean, these are little children who are getting money from their piggy bank to give to somebody else. And I'm very proud of them to have that kind of giving heart, and I'm proud of their families for everyone who supported that effort. I think it's a wonderful picture of the wonderful community that we live in. Based on our beginning of year data, we have our interventions started for children, our academic interventions in reading and math. We use beginning of year data to decide to figure out what level they're on with reading and math. And this is not children who are necessarily placed with IEPs. This is children who are just below grade level. And we do have those beginning so that we can monitor and track growth through the year for those children to make sure that we are getting catch-up growth for the children in reading and math interventions. So that has gotten started. We will be doing our first check-in by the end of this month. And that's the first, it's almost like a mini EOG state assessment. It's 20 to 25 questions depending on the grade level in reading and math. It covers just certain curriculum standards, and it gives the teacher a really good feel for what the children have grasped and what we need to go back and reteach. So those are always beneficial to our teachers. Just like the middle school, we had a really good turnout with our virtual parent conferences. We actually have a better turnout when they are virtual than we do when they're face-to-face. Teachers report that we were able to make contact with almost everyone. Of course, when students are younger, we tend to get more parent participation in middle and high. But we had a great turnout with being able to make contact with families that day. And people really appreciated the virtual aspect of it, or the phone call aspect. We are now having a pumpkin contest at the elementary school. Every grade level gets to pick a book that they've read and make a pumpkin that is related to that book, character, the setting, or whatever. At the end of the month, right before Halloween, we're going to judge the pumpkins, and the winning kids from each grade level with the best pumpkin gets to have lunch with Mr. Knott. So the lunch part, they always like to, be able to pick lunch from wherever. We usually let them pick or whatever. So they always get excited about that, and they're very creative. We're always amazed at some of the things that they come up with, so we enjoy that. And just a little note about our third grade BOG to give you a little bit of perspective of some things that we're seeing positives with our testing this year. Prior to COVID, our third grade BOG, and remember with the BOG in reading, it's testing children on end of third grade material. So we do not expect a lot of children to be proficient yet because it's end of third grade material. Prior to COVID, we had 11.8% of our third graders coming to us already proficient. That's a shout out to our K2 teachers.
Starting third grade, already proficient with third grade skills.
With end of third grade
So
skills.
explain BOG, what it means.
Beginning of grade, whereas the EOG is end of grade. So these are our third graders that are coming through the door, already proficient on end of third grade material. So this is really a K2 test, if you will, because they've not had third grade yet, okay? Pre-COVID, we were at 11.8%. Last year, when students had been out from March till the end of the year, and then we got them back in August, our third grade BOG percentage dropped to 2.4%. And if you'll keep in mind, last year, we were able to start our year having K3 4 days a week. We were able to make that happen. So we had our children, our youngest children, more last year, even with the remote shutdown, even with remote Wednesdays, we had those children more in K3 than we did in 412 last year. This year, with our third grade BOG data, we had 12.7% of our children already proficient on end of third grade material. So the benefit that we're seeing here is a shout out to our K2 teachers, but that with our BOG, which is just one indicator, we are at least back to similarly to what we were to pre-COVID numbers. And so we're very excited about that. And we feel like that in kindergarten, first and second grade, we have a lot of curriculum in place that builds upon each other, and it's streamlined with phonics, with teaching reading, with math, and we feel like that we're starting to see some benefits to those in our data. So I just didn't want that to get by today without doing a shout out to those K2 teachers for doing such a good job, even through COVID, to have us back to those pre-COVID numbers for the third grade BOG.
Yeah, David will be here shortly. Oh, he's here, come on in.
Sorry for my tardiness this morning, I was in a
That's
webinar. Just a few things to report from the high school. But we're wide open for one thing. There's something just about every night, it seems like. Tonight we have our first FAFSA night for our seniors and their parents. That's at 6:30 at the Media Center. We got kids that are obviously our seniors that started the college application process. Guidance office doing a great job working with them, as is Noah Hedrick, our new college advising person from App State. For the first time that I know of, we're going to have this is kind of the world of CD, we're going to have a 5th grade career exploration day. That is on October the 28th. All the 5th grade will be coming over to the high school throughout the day and touring each one of our CPE teachers' classes. They'll spend about 5 minutes in each class where they'll get introduced to what that teacher teaches and what careers are related to it. And then they'll rotate on to the next one, and hopefully there'll be some demonstrations in those classes for the kids and things like that. And that'll be pretty much an all-day event. And I appreciate Ms. Hoover working with us to allow the 5th grade to come over to our campus. They'll be coming over during Shay Lomax's and social studies class. So we'll have 4 different groups coming over. We've got high school kids that'll be hosting those kids, serving as tour guides to take them around the high school building called the CPE class. So we're excited about that. We started after school yesterday, and it's good to have the 21st Century Grant back in high school. We've got kids that will be starting credit recovery, and also they'll be receiving homework help. So that's good. And we have volleyball at home. We had it last night. We got Andrews. Tonight we have Cherokee. Thursday we have Murphy at home. And Thursday is senior night for our volleyball team. They're having a really good year. Right now they've only lost one conference match. That is against Murphy. So if they win tonight, they'll be playing Murphy pretty much to be co-champions on Thursday night. So that's a big match. I'd like to invite y'all to come out and be part of that. And it looks like there's a real good possibility, it's not finalized yet, but the conference volleyball tournament is scheduled to be at Robbinsville High School. And that will start, I think, a week from Saturday. The ADs will make the final arrangements about that and determine whether or not they're going to have the tournament for sure tomorrow in the AD meeting for the conference. So, but I look for that to happen. We have our cross-country team will be competing at home tomorrow on the high school campus. So I'd like to invite y'all to come out and watch our kids run. We don't have a lot of opportunities to get them, for them to have home meets, but their home meeting is scheduled for tomorrow. And then the football team has had a challenge getting games, as you know, but we haven't been able to play the last 2 weeks. We're able to have homecoming. This week we are at Cherokee, and we'd also like to make y'all aware that October the 22nd will be our Hall of Fame night and for the Graham County Athletic Hall of Fame. The inductees this year are Mr. Charles George, Randy Moody, Mitch Crow, and the 1977 and 1979 1A championship football team. So we've got a really good group that's going to be going into the Hall of Fame. And we have an assembly scheduled at the high school on next Monday, October the 11th. This is through the FCA. Mr. Randy Shepard of Crossfire Ministries will be coming, and he'll be speaking to the high school at 1 o'clock and then the middle school at 2 o'clock. So we're looking forward to having Randy on our campus. He's was a college basketball player, sponsors the ACC All-Star Game up in Asheville every year, and is an excellent speaker. I think he'll be really good for our kids. That is, because it's an FCA event, it is voluntary for the kids. If they choose to come, they can, but they do not have to attend. So that's all I've got.
You're not asking for questions, can I ask a question? Not just you, but Ms. Hooper, because I think y'all are afraid I'm gonna ask questions. How's your trip coming, Ms. Hooper?
The fifth grade trip, the last time we checked, we had 31 children, or 31 individuals that were registered, and we are in the middle of fundraising.
How's your trip?
I was at that yesterday, so I know we have 20-some kids that have signed up from last year, and carried over. I don't know how many juniors have signed up this year.
Let me ask all three principals, do you have a fund that if people want to donate to a fund so to help some kids that may not be able to go?
Yeah.
We need to throw that out there to the community.
We do, and we have 12 identified children that would benefit from almost like a scholarship or a partial scholarship. And we are approaching businesses and individuals, but anyone that would want to donate, we for sure have that.
If we can get it out there publicly, and we have people knowledge, we can get out there.
It is more an issue, and that's how we set our trip through a sport. And each individual person has to have their own account and register. But I'm sure if someone wanted to help a kid, we can make that happen. Okay.
We also do this work at the elementary.
Thank you.
Mark, do you have anything for us?
Not just, everything's going good with technology, update on the E-rate that we worked on last year. Our equipment is slowly starting to come in, so I'm starting to inventory. We'll start configuring, we'll start trying to get those out into the closets. We are working on some of the ECF funding to get some more Chromebooks and to get data on our hotspots that we had from last year. I'm in PIA review. It means I've got to answer a bunch of questions that I should have already answered, but whatever. And hopefully that will get approved soon, because we are already getting inquiries in from parents needing these hotspots. And so that's the biggest thing right now, is trying to get them internet access at home so they can at least do their homework. Or if they get quarantined, they can do their work. So that's the biggest thing. But other than that, everything seems to be going pretty good.
So I might mention that Ms. Walter has been working with County and Southwest Commission.
Oh, yes.
And we received a $30,000 grant.
Yeah, for Chromebooks that we hopefully will be ordered soon. And then I'm working on RFPs to send to the county for the other, so we can get other equipment and stuff purchased also.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Letitia, you have anything for us?
I
morning. I just wanted to follow up with an announcement that Ms. Walsh had made about the beginning Teacher of the Year announcement. She had indicated that Mandy Adams was our candidate for that. Each year, we are able to identify, based on last year's population of beginning teachers, who would be representative of our community, and based on the survey that Ms. Knight had created, each individual in the system was allowed to vote, and Mandy Adams was our recipient this year. She will go on to compete. We're very proud of the progress that she's made. We hired her as a nurse initially, but she found that she had a great passion for being in the classroom and teaching the content of science. So she shifted last year into a beginning teacher role and has done a remarkable job. And so, Ms. Knott, did that kind of answer your question?
That did, I thought we maybe had one for each school, but I didn't know.
No, it's
Just one for the county.
for the beginning teacher role, or that role for that pot of people that we have that population each year.
But in year two.
Yes.
Beginning teacher.
Beginning year 2, yes.
So this year we will have 10 candidates that could potentially be eligible for next year.
For next fall.
And who did you say nominate? Who
Sorry?
does the nominate, who nominates?
It was put together as a vote by the
Oh,
school
okay.
system. Yes, we indicated every individual's name, and it was put out as a survey, and that's who was voted as the winner this year. Yes. And then I also wanted to share with you that the mental health core and crisis team is meeting regularly. This team is comprised of school counselors, nurses, social workers, mental health liaisons, any individuals in buildings that would be considered helpers, that need to have boots on the ground during COVID and during pandemic times. We have been very steadily meeting, typically twice a month, and we're trying to address very hard mental health issues that our students are attempting to combat right now. We are trying to take every topic to the table and sit around as professionals and determine what we can do best to help aid and assist students. And that's all I have for you all today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Christie, I saw you come in. Do you have anything for
Yeah, I
us?
apologize. I've been in IEP meetings all morning. We've been revising some student schedules for children with exceptional needs. Yes, we moving right along this year. We've been really looking into our data for exceptional children and looking at their schedules and seeing what's working, what's not, and trying to close those gaps for kids. We have been, I've been working on the consolidated grants. They were all, that's been taking up a lot of my time. We got all those completed last week. We're getting approval on those that are coming in. So, but also a lot of talking about our preschool. Our preschool is doing really well right now. We do have some slots available. Could possibly hold another 15. We have seen a decline in kids' applications this year for whatever reason. So we are trying to get the word out for that, that we are still accepting applications for 4-year-olds and even 3-year-olds for private pay. So I sent out a parent link, and we're also going to put some stuff on social media to try to get the word out to continue to fill those slots. Right now, the NC Pre-K is paying us until November for the slots that we have open, but we're diligently working on that. We are working with our North Carolina School Improvement Project and depleting those funds right now, doing a lot of professional development in reading and math right now with all of our new faculty. We're offering approximately 20 of our teachers are now in training with the Foundations of Math course that started last week. That's a 5-day training. And we're also seeing a great deal of all of our new staff to our reading research classroom practice, and also our research-based programs that we offer at the elementary to get them trained and working with them and their professional needs as well. There's a lot going on in the area of you've heard of MTSS, which is multi-tiered system of support. That whole part is in regard to our interventions across our school system for reading, mathematics, and social emotional learning. So we're on the ground running with that, trying to get those in place and get our screeners so we can identify students at risk and start making plans for those, how we're going to identify their needs and address those needs. So, but it's been a great start to the school year, moving right along. We are now going back to the EC conference this year. We've got about 6 people going to that. So I think we've got a lot of good topics in November in Greensboro. So it's just been a fast-paced year so far, but things are going good.
Did I miss anyone? Oh, well, she's on the agenda.
Well,
Oh, okay.
That's gonna be changed.
Okay, go ahead. And go ahead and make your field trip request also.
Well, that's changed. None of the schools are letting us on campus.
Oh,
But we
okay.
would have to go to for overnight. Not yet, hopefully in the spring.
Okay.
But I'd like to go ahead and start off with high school. Today is Tri-County Tuesday. I'm retired, Sheriff. We have a new representative. Her name is Jenna Stefchak, and she is with our higher education. She is paid through Gear Up to come to Robbinsville High School. She has been wonderful. The kids have been lining up at her desk. She's there to help our dual enrollment as well as our seniors that are thinking about going to Tri-County. She can help with financial help. She's just been amazing, and we're so happy to have her. They provided me with Tri-County gear, so I told them I'd wear it on Tuesdays. So all the kids see me in the hall and Jen's there, help remind them. We've been going in our college readiness classes and senior English classes, really pushing this month. October is college readiness month, and this is the whole month. Go get them, okay? We're going with college access, matching fit, financial aid. Mr. Matheson mentioned our FAFSA night tonight. I'm feeding everybody T-dubs. We're trying to draw them in that way. We will have Ms. Daniels, the guidance counselor, Noah Hedrick, our college advising board person, myself from Gear Up, Jenny B. Sorrells and Aaron Goodpaster will be there from Western for Project Discovery, and a finance officer, Kate Dockery, is coming from Tri-County. So we hope that way everybody can get assistance of what they need. We're there for a hands-on and to stay there as long as they need us. Thursday is our FAFSA day for in-house, and parents are making appointments or dropping in. We're trying to get that settled out for Thursday. There are children with special, I want to say special needs that they, for finances because of their home positions. Jenny B is expert in that, and she will be there to help as well as we'll be there for one-on-one assistance. Let's see, college trips. Since colleges are not letting us particularly be on campus, we're having to be select. We have 2 trips planned for the month of November. One of them is November the 11th to UNC Charlotte and Queens. That will be a day trip. We leave early in the morning, return later in the evening. We have a lot of students interested in UNC Charlotte, and we figured while we're there, we'll go ahead and show them Queens, and maybe somebody will show them interest there. On November the 18th, we have a day trip scheduled to App State. We have a lot of students, especially with the Gear Up Guarantee, who are interested in going to App State. And while they're there, we have a couple of requests to go to Lee's McCrae. So we would leave it early in the morning again and coming back. We're taking activity buses, so the cost will be lower. Gear Up has not allotted me as much money as I would hope for high school, so we're having to make the budget stretch a little bit there. In the spring, we hope to take overnight trips to NC State, Duke, and Chapel Hill. The seniors now went their sophomore year. So we polled those students and asked if there was anybody specifically who needed to go to those campuses again, and they didn't think they needed to go. So we're hoping to do a spring trip, and those maybe who have applied and been accepted or maybe not quite accepted, they can get their feet on those campuses, and we'll take the juniors. I think that's all high school. Okay, middle school, since I'm there now. 6th, 7th, and 8th, 11th, and 12th are my cohort. We've got some really exciting news going on in middle school. I'm really happy. Shannon Knott applied and was accepted to be in a Root Ed program. She went to a 2-day conference in Nashville last week and explained to me that it's a problem-based learning session, the teachers trained to engage the school-based project with students. The head sponsors, the team are their coaches. They're to solve local and regional challenges and bring the school and the community together through STEM project. They'll develop a project and actually put it together and then go to a conference the first part of June. Our STEM team in middle school's been phenomenal. That's Amanda Adams, Brian Beasley, Shannon Knott, Jessica Ware, and Jesse Miller. They've all been fabulous. Mandy Adams has put together for her STEM class Lego sections. I just purchased $3,600 worth of Lego Prime kits. The students seem very, very excited about. For each kit, 2 students are assigned to them. And there's 29 different projects they can do for each one of those kits, hands-on. They're really excited about that. Jessica Ware, she has come up with the idea for her 2 new ag classes to make a temporary livestock fencing out by Chrissy's Closet, the pavilion that's covered. Her students designed the project. I got it approved with much applause. They were just thrilled we're doing this. And the students actually went out and built it, put it together. She sent photos to me. I in turn sent them to Gear Up, and Gear Up now wants me to write an article and get photo permission for the students to put it on the Gear Up blog on the Outstates page. So we're really excited about that. That just happened yesterday. We were supposed to take the middle school on a college trip to UNCA for Bulldog Day. That's been rescheduled until spring due to COVID. We've been having family STEM nights via Zoom. Our last one, we built a solar car. I even tried, even though my wheel fell off. The kids thought that was funny to see Miss Brady's wheel fall off as it went down the hall. But they thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a family project. Now, our next one is October the 26th. They're signing up right now, and it's exploring food sciences and discovering microbes. Becky Brock said that her class studies that in 8th grade, so she's been pushing that. Registration's going now if you know anybody who'd like to sign up. The students get a kit that comes to the middle school. I hand them out, and then they sign on to Zoom that night and build it as a family. So we're very proud of what else going on in our middle school. Thanks.
All right, those trips, do we have to approve those?
They're in-state day trips.
Oh,
That's why I said I don't need them.
okay,
Thank you.
There are some other field trip requests we get.
okay. Okay, Ms. Knight, personnel.
Yes, I will be bringing to you the names during closed session of a teacher assistant, golf coach, substitutes, volunteers, and seekers.
Mr. White, facilities update.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I heard Ms. Walsh already say a little bit about the construction, but we did have a construction meeting last Wednesday, the 29th. Basically, the past month has been spent improving the soil conditions that we knew that were going to have to be improved based off of those the drilling tests we had done early on. During our planning process, of course, we knew this was going to happen, so we did have some contingency funds in place for that. In total, they ended up removing 1,065 cubic yards of structural fill and had to bring that back in. They had that unsuitable silty clay stuff, what we needed to take out. But anyway, that has been completed at this point. Footers have been poured, and plumbing and electrical rough is underway at this time. The slab is scheduled to be poured the week of October the 11th, and so we should start seeing steel go up soon after that. As we discussed last month, and I believe I heard Tanya mention this, the project is running behind. They gave us several different reasons for the delay, but we've had some of the construction workers on quarantine, COVID quarantine, stuff such as that. That's causing delays. Of course, we've had a couple of different tropical depressions move through here, so that's caused some weather delays, especially in trying to make the soil improvements. Also, we talked last month about the material delays we have. And another one that I found out last week was we're having delays because they don't have enough qualified truck drivers to bring concrete to them. So it's just how it's at this point in time, we do expect an extension on project completion day. We talked during the construction meeting, there's absolutely no advantage to Western builders for them to back up the dates. They would like to get finished and get moved on to something else. It's just one of those things. I guess it's just a challenging time to have a new truck. For the elementary gym down here, that was brought up to you guys last month. Western builders should be here next week to begin the reinforcement of the walls that were suggested by the structural engineers. They said that process should go pretty quickly, and as soon as they're finished with that, we'll get the bleachers put back, and then we'll start talking to the floor people. So hopefully we'll start to see the light come on that project. So, anything you want to say about it?
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
I mean, with the weather and, we've got a preschool displaced from their playground. We've got an elementary school displaced from their gym, and also community sports and middle school displaced during basketball season. So we're excited to see some progress being made there.
So hopefully that will go quickly, and we'll get students back in that gymnasium as soon as possible. Also, the auditorium seating, the removal of the existing seats should take place in the next couple of weeks. They're going to delay bringing in the new seats, for a couple of weeks to give us an opportunity to go in and work on the lighting and things such as that. So that ought to be coming pretty quickly as well. Just maybe anything you want to mention about that. But that's pretty much all I was going to mention about construction. So you want me to move on to testing? Move on to testing. Okay. Well, as you will remember, the United States Department of Education in 2019, 2020, they waived testing. So this past year we did test, which was the first time that any EOCs or EOGs were given since May of 2019. This past year, 2021, the Department of Education, they did not give testing waivers, but they did give accountability waivers. And now, I guess to kind of explain that a little bit to you, accountability, the accountability piece is the reporting piece. There's where you come in and, that's where our school report cards come from, and all that type of stuff. Those waivers were given, so the actual federal reporting measures were not reported this past school year. But we did have a test. I printed off an email that was from the State Board of Education Chairman Eric Davis and Superintendent-elect. At the time it was Mark Johnson, Superintendent, but Catherine True was the Superintendent-elect, and they sent out a joint message to all public school units back last December. And one part of this letter I just want to kind of read to you guys to kind of let you know more about this testing. This statement, this one paragraph says, "We know that despite the heroic efforts of our schools, teachers, and parents, the COVID-19 pandemic has seriously disrupted the lives of all students. We share the frustration that parents and students are feeling. However, as we begin to see the end of the pandemic, we cannot ignore what has happened to our children. The EOCs are part of our efforts to document the losses that we believe the pandemic has inflicted on our students. That information will provide the foundation for future remedial actions, including our efforts to secure the additional resources necessary to support the educational losses our children have suffered." So with that being said, we did test this past year, and from that letter out there, you can see that the emphasis needs to be placed on learner loss. North Carolina Department of Public Instruction, after the results started rolling out, they strongly urge caution when looking at individual schools' testing results and trying to compare those to other schools or even state averages. The reason for these cautions are due to, well, just think about it, each individual community was affected differently by this COVID pandemic in various different ways. Some communities have excellent internet access. Some teachers were quarantined long periods of time where they might have had subs for long periods of time. Students, I know my son, last year it seemed like, and I'm sure Mr. Max would agree with this, it seemed like my son, every time he would get off of quarantine, he was in school for 4 days, and next thing I know, he'd be on another quarantine. So, there's lots of different things that affected the educational process, and, of course, since, I guess, March of, 2020, 19. So, but anyway, learning loss were in this place. Graham County Schools has already begun the process of developing plans to combat that learning loss. I'm sure that Mrs. Knight and school principals will be talking about their plans with you in upcoming meetings.
They will, as a matter of fact, at the November meeting, they'll be presenting their school improvement plans, and they'll be discussing their strategies at that time.
So, Mr. White, what you're telling us, we were not compared with any other county in the state, right?
That they are urging caution to do that.
Well, was it put out there?
Yes.
It was put out
Well,
there?
it was, all the data is out on one great big spreadsheet from the EPI. Now, that was part of the, you have to, according to the ESSA law, and all that stuff, we were given waivers for certain pieces, and certain pieces we were not. And so, the scores are out, and basically, like I said, they are meant to try to show where we, as a school, can need to address the learning loss. Okay? And so in this chart that I just gave to you, you'll see a comparison of the percentage of our students making levels 3, 4, 5 on each individual EFG and ESC. And it's compared to the percentage of all students in the state of North Carolina making a 3, 4, 5. Now again, just like I mentioned there a little earlier, they urge caution in even doing this. So I had a hard time even deciding how I was going to present this stuff to you guys. But this is what we ended up doing. So just an example, you look down to their third grade ELA. 35.7% of Grant County students were scoring 3, 4, 5, where 45.5% of all students in North Carolina were scoring 3, 4, 5. Jump down a little bit, sixth grade ELA. 44.9% of Grant County students were scoring 3, 4, 5, where 45.3% of North Carolina students, or all students in North Carolina, were scoring 3, 4, 5. Jump on down to math a little bit, sixth grade math. 42% of Grant County students were scoring 3, 4, 5, where 40.6% of all North Carolina students were scoring 3, 4, 5. Jump on down a little bit more, get down toward middle school scores, eighth grade science. 78.3% of Graham County school students are scoring 3, 4, 5, where 70.3% of all students in North Carolina. Going down toward the bottom of the chart, you'll see where Graham County School's graduation rate was at 92.1% compared to 87% for the state of North Carolina. You also see there in the ACT composite that our students are holding their own when it comes to the ACT composite across the state of North Carolina. Also, the work keys, what that is that's for CPE concentrators. That is typically something that Graham County Schools has really good numbers. This past year, you can tell there was some loss there. And so, anyway, I just wanted to show you, give you this chart, let you kind of see what the scores look like. But again, I do want to remind you that our Department of Public Instruction urges caution in these comparisons. Just know that we are taking this learning, we're looking at learning loss, we are taking it seriously, we are making plans for that, and they will be addressed.
You did it very well. We had an administrative team meeting We looked at strategies, that some of the strategies are already in place, some will be in place. And like I said, the principal will be presenting their school improvement plans to you, they'll be reading, and they'll be incorporating some of those strategies and sharing those with you as well.
But this is on the DPI website, correct?
Yes, you
And
can.
anyone can access.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
our community. And
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. White. All right, so D, field trip request, that's not happening,
Now,
right?
we have some, this is not, Ms. Williams is not. Represent her, so there are others.
Okay.
I do have a couple from the high school.
And I have one more to add to.
Okay, one, the peer helper field trip, that will be with 5 students, 4 faculty members, a bus driver. It will be to the historic Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary in Petros, Tennessee, and they'll be touring the prison and learning the history of when it was in operation. That's October 28th. So, are there any questions? The next field trip will be,
You don't want us to vote on that?
well, maybe, do you want to vote on them individually or that one, or all together, it's up to y'all.
Just vote on them all together, I guess. Just gotta review.
The next request for field trip will be for our band, the marching band, to enter the float competition in the Gatlinburg Parade. That will be December 3rd. This year's Christmas, the theme is Christmas in the Smokies. So the band will be requesting permission to be a part of that event. That is a big deal.
Yeah.
Everybody should go and support them for that.
And I have one more. So also have a field trip. This is for the High School Club of Math and Science, and it is to the Tennessee Aquarium in Chattanooga on October the 20th of this month. So it's the Club of Math and Science.
Just Chattanooga Aquarium.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna do these all and then we'll vote on them. Field trips request. The high school peer helper group on October 28th to Petros, Tennessee for the Brushy Mountain State Prison. The band to Gatlinburg on December 3rd. And the Club of Math and Science to the Chattanooga Aquarium on October 20th. Do I have a motion to approve these 3 field trips? Do I have a second? Second. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. All right. COVID update, resolution review.
Yes, so per state requirement, the board is to review your COVID resolution and policies each month to see if the decision you've made still needs to stand or if you need to change decisions. There were some questions brought up after the last meeting by Mrs. Knott, and I have asked Nurse Carly Odom, who is our lead nurse, that will be taking over for our lead nurse, Kim Lovelace, which I'd like to give plug for Miss Lovelace. She'll be retiring, and we appreciate her service to Graham County Schools. So we've turned over some of that responsibility in the process to Nurse Odom, and she'll be sharing some of the mandates we have and just an overview of how we come to the decision making. And there's even, I think, been some changes this morning.
So you have a copy, I made these flowcharts for you on how we establish quarantine and how we do that in all schools. So there's also staff close contacts flowchart and a student close contact. So since we went back to mask, we we are not required to do contact tracing as long as the students are wearing masks. So, the only time we have to go and figure out who has been within 6 feet in the school system and who needs to go home is during lunch because they are without masks for 30 minutes and they're not 6 feet apart. As of this morning in the DPI and DHHS meeting, it has now been advised that mask to mask applies for teachers and staff as well. So nobody has to go home except for during lunch. So before it didn't apply to adults. So we were having, even if the teachers were wearing a mask, if somebody in our class was positive, the teacher had to go home if they were within 6 feet for 15 minutes cumulative in a day.
So what has changed, did you say?
Now, that the mask to mask, teachers don't have to quarantine if they're within 6 feet.
And that changed with the strong schools.
The toolkit has not been updated yet. DPI just released that this morning in their meeting. As of today, in all 3 schools, we only have 1 staff member out, 4 positive kids, and 9 quarantine kids.
So our numbers that went from before we went home for remote, I came to you with about 32 to 33% of our kids that were either positive or quarantined. And I've been sending you pretty much daily as we have the information available. We can use the information. So with Nurse figures today, it's probably even less. But yesterday, the student positivity rate for quarantine and positive was 1.19%, and the staff rate was 0.4849. So it had dropped that much. So that's a huge change. Even when we came back, we were around the 7 and 8% positivity rate. We dropped down around the 1 and below.
Let me ask you something. I want to ask you something. I'm going to take my mask down because according to the toolkit, I can do this if I want to. I want folks to hear me. Because I've read this toolkit 4 times and studied it, and there's a science brief in here that is very good. I encourage you to read the science brief. But before we went remote, and we were optional masks, Miss Knight, or somebody can answer this for me, we were quarantining entire classrooms because it was not mask to mask, correct?
That's correct.
So that made our numbers look much higher, correct?
Well, yeah, because we weren't masked, we didn't have any way of knowing the exposure.
Exactly. So really the numbers are kind of skewed if we were doing whole classrooms, whereas we're not doing entire classrooms.
But the rules had changed because we chose to go with masks.
Exactly. We did change because we chose to go and not go be optional.
That's correct.
But really, as far as looking, I think as far as our community was looking at that, it looked like, and I'm not sure this is the case, it looked like masks, when we did go back to masks and we were not sending entire classrooms home, where teachers had no one in class, it looked like masks were really, really helping. Okay, and I'm not saying that they're not helping, but once again, I'm just bringing that out there that I'm a little afraid the numbers were, we were looking at numbers that were different than they are now because we are fully masked.
So to look at similar numbers then, so once you went to the mask mandate, I gave you your first daily update on September 14th. We came back on the 13th. At that time, our positivity rate for positive and quarantine students was 6 points. You can bear with me, 6.7% for students and 4.3% for staff. Then again, as of yesterday, we were just a little above 1% for students and below 1% for staff. So that's the comparison with the apples to apples.
Right. And then of course, like I say, I've studied this. Who is our COVID committee? Do we have a COVID committee or a team
that will be our school nurses, that will be myself, that will be Mr. Moody, that will be Ms. Wiggins. I'm sure sometimes we're pulling other people in as needed for that.
Do you meet?
Well, we meet pretty regularly, I mean, when we're having a discussion. So.
Okay. Well, of course, you know, I brought up the last time trying to get signage at the football games. And of course, that motion was knocked down for lack of a second. But in the toolkit, after going through this, and I'm not saying we need to do this, but it would be nice to put up a sign. It does say indoor masking, and it talks about, however, outdoors in general, people do not need to wear a mask outdoors. And I think that's what you were saying. It does say, and we have to remember that these are all recommendations in the toolkit. They are recommendations from the CDC. Recommendations, not mandates.
We've got a new mandate that are coming,
Okay.
and I'll address that policy.
But trying to get this through, because I do know that if there's a mask sign up, and when I came to the last school board meeting, there was not a mask sign on the door, therefore I did not have a mask on in the meeting. I think some people addressed that. There was a sign that we needed to be 6 feet apart. We were 6 feet apart. So because there was not a mask sign on the door, I did not wear one that day. I go into the doctor's office with a mask. Today there is a sign on the door, so I have my mask on. But it says in the toolkit, however, particularly in areas of substantial to high transmission, the CDC recommends who are not fully vaccinated, which when we go to a football game, we have no idea. Apparently in this county, we have very low vaccination rates. Is that true?
We're to 50% according to the health director this morning.
Okay, well that's good.
Is that one shelter?
She didn't.
There is the 1 shot, 2 shot, which there is a big difference according to that. Who are not fully vaccinated, wear a mask in crowded outdoor settings during activities that involve sustained close contact with people who are not fully vaccinated. And that was one reason I felt like signage was important at a game. I was not asking anyone to enforce that, but I just felt like most people would wear, well, maybe not most people, but if they really cared about our kids, they would wear a mask to a football game if there was signage up. And Mr. Madison, I believe, Mr. Madison's going up. Mr. Madison.
I'm gonna be honest with you, it's not right now, we can't get them to wear them in the gym.
Okay, that's what
I mean, that's inside.
That's with us providing a mask for.
That's with us handling the mask when they walk in, they will not put one on.
And that's a requirement of our school.
I mean, inside activities, but I
I
mean,
don't understand why people won't do that.
they will not. I mean, and, you know, as far as us policing that, you know, there's no way we can go through the stands and start moving people, you know, that just totally refuse to at a ball game.
And I want to add what that looks like at elementary school also, even with younger kids. We run into, when we are inside and we are in classrooms, you have little ones that will tell their teacher, my mom said I don't have to wear it, period. And the teacher can encourage, you need to put your mask on, you need to put your mask on, but we also can't have our hands and stuff on people's face and make a child put their mask on.
Well, according to the toolkit, if you have a child that is difficult, according to the toolkit, there's a whole list here if you want to read these. It says, if there is a child whose parent, guardian, or responsible person has been unable to place a face covering safely on a child's face, and that comes under exceptions of face coverings, are people who, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in the school kit. So I'm saying if a teacher's really having trouble with that, according to this, you know, you just don't keep on, because that's exactly what this says.
And we have worked with some parents.
Yes.
That have, and helped us reach a compromise with many parents in all schools.
And actually, the toolkit says if you're vaccinated, you really don't have to use masks if you're vaccinated.
But you made a board decision.
That's true. We Now, before I finish, there's one other thing that I am concerned about. I think we want to help our staff as much as we can. And I don't know if you're familiar with the North Carolina Public Schools Benefits and Employees Manual. And I do know, I'm a little bit concerned that, when the committee met, I think children, and I think it's important for children to be in school, and I think some systems are coming up with some really good things to keep kids in school and not sending them home for 14 days if they have COVID. But according to the toolkit, and Miss Odom, you can correct me if this is not true. Persons can return to school after complete 14-day quarantine. The 14-day quarantine begins the last of the close contact with COVID-19 positive individuals. Alternatives can be complete 10-day quarantine if the person is not presenting symptoms of COVID after daily home monitoring, or they complete 7 days of quarantine, and these are in bold letters. If they report no symptoms during the daily home monitoring and the individual has received results of a negative antigen or the molecular PCR molecular test, and the antigen is the short term, it's the rapid. Okay, the rapid, and the molecular is the send-off, correct? On a test date no earlier than 5 of the quarantine. Now, I think some school systems are really picking that up. And they are doing that.
Committee, which includes the health department, which would be the ones that we would have to refer to make a final decision, because they really are quarantine. They give us our guidance, even though that's recommended. We also have to, of course, with what the health department says, we have a choice that we could have done 14 days, or we could have went to the 7. We felt like if we went to the 7, that was more work than we have. We have 2 nurses. We now have 1 school nurse and 1 that is getting ready to retire. That was more work than they could do to figure out when the days were that people were tested and what their test results said, and do the contact tracing for that. So as a committee, we all chose the 10 days, which was a happy medium, and would allow students to come back either with 10 days with a negative test, no test, but
Right, have to alternate 10 or 14 students, so staff have to do the 7 because they're essential work.
So students can come back in 10 days, correct?
Yes.
And
With
it
the
has,
test,
and it
no
has,
testing required for the 10 or
exactly,
14
and it
days.
has been like that. It's been like that. That has been our law since the beginning of school.
Yeah, we met before school started,
Yes.
and then we're ready to have it.
Yes.
Okay.
Staff are different because they're essential workers.
Yeah.
They are allowed to do the 7 days.
Yes. Well, but our children are learners, and I think that is very important. I know some school systems are trying to get their kids back in as soon as they can, for sure. And the quarantine, especially when a child is quarantined because they've been in close contact, shows no symptoms, it looks like they should be able to do this also.
Speaking of the principal, I appreciate the fact that you're thinking about longer. I'd rather have 1 or 2 kids out 10 days than have to close school again for 14. And some of our kids are not showing positive tests until like 8, 9, 10 days.
That's part of the 10-day reasoning, is because the incubation period, if I'm not wrong, is 14 days. And so even if you have your test on 5 days, at day 8, you may also end up presenting symptoms, or day 10, you might even. So that was why the health department's recommendation was the 10 days. Right now, I'm not pointing out that our quarantine, we only have 10 children in the whole school system that are quarantined right now.
The science brief and the school toolkit talks about the SARS. All they talk about is the SARS-CoV-2, not the COVID-19, correct? Okay. Can you explain that?
That, the only guidance me and Ken have been able to get is that that's just the universal term that they're using to cover all forms of evidence.
Which the SARS-CoV-2 is a novel, just a novel, and in other words, it can lead to COVID-19, the SARS can. And according to of course, there's a lot there, and the science brief, and I could spend a lot of time. But several contact tracing studies have found limited student-to-student transmission in schools. There is evidence to indicate that the SARS-CoV-2 might spread more easily with high school students than in elementary because of interaction with non-household members outside of school. And I think that's where we're running into trouble. Because I think in summer school, we didn't have a mask at all in summer school, I believe. We were letting our guard up because it does say that in January of 2021, according to this brief, the COVID-19 did drop. And so we let our guard up. And we apparently did fine in summer school with no masks.
Well, we also didn't have the Delta variant that had begun either until after that.
No, and now we have the new variant, of course, and no vaccine for that. But then, of course, as soon as summer school was out, the CDC, and the CDC, once again, these recommendations, is that once school was out, people started going on vacations, and the CDC does recommend, still recommends, to limit your travel. But that said, I have been doing a lot of studying. I do a lot of reading. This benefits, North Carolina Public School Benefits Employment Policy Manual. You're familiar, is our school board familiar with this? Are y'all familiar with this? Are you familiar with this? This is just part of it. I'd like to have the entire manual. Mister?
It's on for the public. It's on the.
It's on, okay, it is. And it is from Public Schools of North Carolina, Department of Public Instruction. 9.4.1 contagious diseases. When a director of a county health department, in order to control the spread of contagious disease or protect the health of an employee, orders an employee to leave his or her work environment, the local superintendent shall: A, reassign the employee to a safe work environment under conditions agreed to by the director of the county health department. B, place the employee on leave with pay for a period of time set by the medical director, and I would say that would be a head nurse. If they say this staff member goes home because they've been in contact, we're sending them home from this time to this time in a written letter. Place the employee on leave with pay for a period of time set by the medical director. Leave shall not be charged to the employee's sick leave or other available paid leave. A substitute employee for this reason shall be paid from the same source of funds as the employee, local, federal, or state. Okay, as a board.
So what is the date on that?
I do not know why we're not doing it.
So what
I don't know, it's just.
I need to know the date, there's a reason.
It's the benefits employment manual.
Well, but then it's dated, I need to know what version you have.
This is the one I just got off the other day.
Okay, and I don't know when it's been updated. And Lester May can answer this, Nikki would be a better person, but the state during the pandemic gave state employees COVID days. Actually, they gave 80 hours of COVID leave. And they also have, that expired, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, it expired. So it is no longer an option for the local superintendent to give COVID leave.
So in other words, if you didn't use it, everybody wasn't given this.
Yes, everybody was given this.
So but it's not banked if you didn't use it.
No, that was not an option to bank it.
You know what some other counties are doing?
They're not required by GPI anymore to provide for COVID. Right. Whether it recycles, it might, but it was permanent. That was a short term.
So how would I find out? I guess I'll just have to call, because I think, now this does say revised June 2020.
So we're into October 2021.
So would this not still be in effect?
Not unless.
I think some counties are probably doing this.
Well,
They're not authorized to do it. They're not authorized to do it.
So they can't do
Mr.
it.
Allison has a question.
You mentioned there's 10 students supporting you.
That's correct.
You know how many is actually qualified to be 10?
Oh, those would be 0. There's 14 kids quarantined, and there's 4 positive, 10 quarantined. And they may not be a result of the 4 kids at school that are positive, maybe they're quarantined from a home as well. We have no way, I mean, well, we would have some way.
All of them we have right now are outside of school, positive and positive.
And just one, you said one teacher was positive?
Yes.
And that's the only one quarantine as a teacher?
Yes. So Ms. Davis, I can find out from DPI if I call them, maybe, to see what the.
It's fine, it's not been resurrected, and school boards are not authorized to do it. I think it needs to be another agenda item, to
Okay.
what DPI is considering for the General Assembly, but right now, there are no benefits.
I will try to find out. I will research some more. I just happened to, because I've looked at this before. I have pulled stuff from this before. And I just feel like there's something we can do for employees.
I just want to clarify for Mr. Allison, the one positive that we have for staff right now is not a teacher positive, is that correct? It is an employee of Graham County Schools, but it's not a classroom teacher that's positive right now. So as of right now, we have no classroom teachers or teacher assistants that are positive. Is that correct?
Correct.
Carly, are you done now?
Yes, I'm okay.
All right, L, COVID ESSER funds update, Ms. Knight.
Yes, I just wanted to give you an update on our funds. You will have a packet in your folder that looks like this. There was some public interest as well as in the spirit of you knowing what we're doing with our ESSER money, our CARES money, that's our COVID funds. There's 3 specific funds I would like to bring your attention to. There are a few other smaller funds that are designated for child nutrition or smaller funds for exceptional children. But there are 3 funds particularly that are large numbers that I'd like to share with you. And Mr. Green, anytime you want to jump in here, you're welcome to do that as well. I don't know if you've got a copy of this, Mr. Green, but there's some extras there. So one was the CARES Act funds. Those funds were available to us through September 30th, so they expired last week. We were able to use those funds. They were in the amount of $334,447. Those funds, if you look on about page 3, there were use of funds, what they were able to be used for. Mainly, those were used for sanitation. We used those for, and Mr. Moody, you helped us use a lot of these. They were used for masks. They were used for putting in, like the hand sanitizing stations, the water bottle filling stations. We used them for any kind of plexiglass that we needed to put in offices or any kind of areas around the kids. We provided some of that, we did some remote, probably some of our hotspot placement with those. We bought some devices with that so we could make sure that we were one-to-one, making sure everybody had a working device when they were at home. So you can read for yourself what the uses were for that. So I just wanted to let you know that, that's essentially how those were used. One particular category that we needed to look at with that group of funds was working with our special needs students, making sure that they had consistent services that were in a way that was consistent with their IEPs, whether they were at home or with us or on the hybrid model that we had in the last year and a half. So that is how that particular set of money was used. More specifically, as we get to the ESSER 2, which is the next page, that's the next part of money that came out. And this money does not expire until September 30th, 2023. We received an amount of $1,252,350. And I have given you actually the list of things that we have, that we as a needs assessment district team are spending this money for. And you've heard this, I've already talked to you about this before, but this is just a summary of it. There are some designated positions. This is very specialized in how you can spend this. We work back and forth with a federal program consultant with the state. Each area, line by line, had to be approved by the consultant before it was approved at the state level, because they have to meet federal guidelines. So everything that in the list that you see in front of you was pre-approved prior to us having any money. The biggest part of the ESSER 2 money, which is our PRC 171, was to be spent on learning loss and ways that we could bridge that gap. A large chunk of that money was spent on summer school. We had a mandated summer school program this year, and a large chunk of that money was spent in that program. Additionally, there are some salaries that we designated to take out of there. Moving Ms. Wiggins into the position that she holds, the primary part of her position, which is the resources or support program staff, where she works with our mental health programs and our school nurses, our guidance counselors, our mental health programs. That part of her salary comes from that. We moved Mr. Nelms into an assistant principal type role, a lead teacher role, to help with additional grade there and additional expectations we would have of having a new grade level at the middle school. And being that they had had a year of learning loss, how important it was to make sure that they had a good start when they came to that school. One position that we added, a central office administrative position here to help with data and the day-to-day things like, a whole lot of the days sometimes is unpacking masks and boxes or other supplies that come in, that's some logistical things. We were able to, per the grant initiative, was able to hire Ms. Sunny Pringle as a mental health liaison position, which we know that one of the major part of the learning loss and the being remote and the pandemic is that we have a lot of children that are affected with some mental health issues, and we have really been able to step up in that area and help with that. We were able to pull funds from this program for our math coaches and add an additional math coach this year. You'll see as you skip down below the summer school that I've already talked about. We were able to retrofit all of our smart boards into smart panels, such as the one that you see in the back of the room, so that if we have to do remote learning, we have the best equipment that would allow us to reach students in the best way with the least antiquated equipment that some of our smart boards are quite old. There's additional workshop money in there. There's furniture sometimes that need to be bought to give students an opportunity to social distance more, to be outside. There's some, we're trying to build some outdoor classrooms to get them outside of the school. And I may be getting ahead of myself, I think maybe on the next, there's some, we have HVAC, the HVAC. We are retrofitting some of our HVAC systems to have better air quality throughout the schools and getting rid of some of the old heaters and air conditioners and putting new in. You'll see that happen in the next 2 to 3 years. There's some supplies and materials in there, so that's essentially that. When you skip to the next group of funding, is ESSER 3 money. It's PRC 181 for us. That is a significantly bigger amount of money, $2,801,834. Again, you will see this is not expired until 2024, so some of the salaries were paid 1 year out of 171. In the next 2 to 3 years, the salaries come out of the 181 ESSER 3 money. They're some of the same people. We were able to pay additionally for another pre-K teacher. Quite honestly, preschool is I've talked to the board about it before. Our preschool program is wonderful. We can ask for a better program. It prepared our students very well as they enter into kindergarten, but the NC pre-K program itself does not pay bills. And so we were looking at the possibility of maybe closing down preschool. You've heard this before. We were able to move one preschool teacher into this money because that was an allowable expense for preschool and some preschool equipment. This in order for young children to have access to education through the pandemic. So that was there. Again, some of the money from smart panels and the HVAC also comes out of this. Some additional money in there for any kind of Chromebooks or iPads, additional workshop expense. You'll flip the page. There was one, I did want to bring in, an activity bus was an option that we were able to pay for out of this. In order for our kids to social distance as much as possible, and the fact that we absolutely need another activity bus because of the age. So we have ordered another activity bus, and of course, like everything else, it's delayed, but we do anticipate that being in the works. It has already been ordered. A dishwasher was ordered out of this. We have had an extraordinary amount of additional duty in child nutrition. One part of this that I'm very pleased that we're able to do, you will, just by listening to numbers, we have 10 teachers that are beginning teachers this year. 2 of those 10 teachers are actually fully certified. 8 of those 10 teachers are coming to us in what we used to use the old term as lateral entry. They're coming from another profession or into education. We are able to help them through this grant with some tuition reimbursement to get them fully certified. And we also need to be in the business around here about growing some of our own because we are having a huge shortage of educators. And so we're able to help our teacher assistants that are working on obtaining a teaching degree. So we're able to pull some of the money from this grant to do that. And that has been sent out on a first come, first served basis to all staff. If they meet the criteria of one of these, either a provisionally certified teacher or a teacher assistant working on certification. So that has been sent out already, and we should anticipate the first recipients of that at the end of this semester. Once they turn in a grade for a class and it's a passing grade, then we'll be able to, it's a prorated share, it's like $1,250 a year for some of the people that are involved in the program. But that offsets a little bit of the tuition, so it helps them help us. And so that's something I'm very proud that we can put in there, and that will help us with some sustainability after the COVID money is done, and we've not had tuition reimbursement around here in a long time locally, and it's a nice opportunity to help our staff build capacity, and then again, it all goes back to learning costs. We're trying to bridge this gap. You can look at the very next page to finish up this grant. We were able to upgrade the auditorium at the high school. That is a very well-used part of our campus, not just for the school, for the community. We were in need of carpet in there. When you're looking at sanitation and you have carpet in there for how long, Mr. Matheson?
25 years.
25 years, and you're looking at allergies and being able to clean that well. And we have some broken seats in there. So, we need everything in there so we can spray kids out if that need be, or whatever the condition is happening with COVID. So, we're able to spend, you'll see a $400,000. That is not going to cost $400,000, but that line item is to help us with other furniture, even if it's outdoor furniture or classroom furniture that's needed.
Several seats in the auditorium now will also have a desk that flips up.
That's correct. So we can
use it. It'll be much better for us.
I would agree.
Additional lighting.
Pre-K equipment is in there. I told you already that was part of the grant. Large line items and custodial furniture equipment. We worn out vacuum cleaners and mops around here a lot from all the sanitizing that are going on. So there's some a lot of inventory and supplies in there for them and maintenance. Thank God for our custodial and maintenance staff as well. They've worked really hard during this pandemic, and there are some things that they've actually worn out and we'll be able to replace with this. So the next few pages you can read at your leisure. It's some additional how some of this money came down to us to set aside at the state level, use of funds. And the very back page is how LEA may use ESSER funds. But we had to go through this, like I said, line by line with the federal programs consultant, and they had to approve it line by line, and we were back and forth to make sure that this was approved in a way that is suitable to the federal and the state government. It's in line with the ESSER funds. So.
Was it possible to give, and I don't know, we didn't give all staff some of the COVID funds, did we?
We were able to pay a nice rate of pay this summer for the summer program because that was an additional duty that was not something we had anticipated. So our leadership team and any of our advisors that we have with that felt like we needed to pay a nice sum of money for that. So that's where the stipends come in. There are some stipends coming in down the pipe for school nutrition. It's a separate fund that we just found out. It's not a lot, but it's really a nice something to do. Remember that come out separately. So no, we did not do it across the board.
Was that a possibility that we could have done?
I guess it could have been.
I didn't know where we, since
I guess it could have been. I just, and I think some schools maybe have done a little bit more of that, but we felt like the line items that we put in were a priority for us as far as looking at what was best for all students and the investment we need to make in their learning. So.
Okay, Mr. Green, Indian Lands Procedures Policy Impact Aid.
Okay, I've got a couple items here to be real short. The first item here is called the Native American Policy Procedures, and from the U.S. Department of Education, we are required to revisit this policy every year as part of our impact aid application. This policy was revised and approved last year. I do not have any changes to this policy other than the dates of our impact aid application for this year. And those changes are on page 1.
Okay, we vote on this, don't we? We have to approve it.
Yes.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve Mr. Green's presentation of the Indian Lands Procedures Policy and Impact Aid? Do I have a second? All in favor? Any opposed? All right, Mr. Green, you're still on for budget amendment.
I do not have any budget amendments to present at this board meeting. It's a possibility we may have some next month, school board meeting. I'm almost ready to present our uniform budget, which is all funds combined. We're waiting several of the finance officers in our region. Their process is to wait until the legislature adopts a budget or they adopt a continuing resolution. So I'm not going to wait on that. So
Good thing.
that uniform budget will either be presented at the November or December budget meeting.
Okay, thank you.
One other item that I did hand out, it's a small portion of the spreadsheet that I've developed. And last month we spoke about a couple of costs that affect our budget. One being the retirement matching that we're required to pay. The other being the health insurance that we're required to pay on all of our full-time employees. This list is just for you to view to see over the years how those costs have increased year after year. I think that at the next board training that we have, we can take that spreadsheet that I've created, put it up on the screen. We can change some numbers, look at our total payroll for a year, also the total number of full-time employees we have, and look at how those costs affect us or affect our budget dollar-wise. But this is a list for you to see how those increase, how those fixed costs have increased on a yearly basis. Okay.
Okay, board policies, Ms. Knight. No, Ms. Davis, I'm sorry.
I'll defer.
It'll be very short then.
In your folder, you got policy 3620, extracurricular activity and student organizations. This just changed in the spring of 2021, and what it addresses is the requirements for participation in extracurricular activity. Under A, that's been redefined in that it was tied to policy 4400 attendance. It's no longer tied to that, it's tied to any program where a student fails to meet any applicable attendance requirements. So it's just not tied to one policy, so it's a broader interpretation of attendance. And it's a reminder that extracurricular activities and student organizations is a privilege and not a right. Under B2, it's been completely revised. If you'll just take time to look at well, A and then B2. Then the very last section under 2 definition, the last paragraph, defines non-curricular related student group and curriculum related student group. And the reason that's important is that school employees are inextricably tied to curriculum related activities, but not non-curriculum related. And you'll read that in 2, that public funds and school employees are not permitted to be involved with student-initiated non-curricular activity, except for monitoring for safety and discipline and maintaining order. Okay, C, special circumstances. C2 is revised. And go to C3. This is the decision of the board to keep this section under C3. And it's participation by homeschool students. And the North Carolina High School Athletic Association does permit participation for dual enrolled students. And look at that carefully if you want to keep through. I think, Angie, you already have, if the student meets the guideline to be dually, to be enrolled part-time in school,
I think they have to be enrolled in a couple of
They
classes.
have to be enrolled half-time, basically for 2 blocks of the day in order to participate, yes.
okay, so then you probably want to keep that. And then D is new, the appeals process. Okay. Staff-student relations, policy 40. It's basically, it's a no-no. But what reason this is here, it's been revised because the Elementary and Secondary Education Act group has expanded the definition. A school cannot give a recommendation for any employee or contractor or agent of the school it cannot give a recommendation if that person were involved in any romantic relationship or sexual contact with a student. So ESSA has provided an expanded definition. It used to be we just couldn't give a reference for an employee, a teacher that was dismissed, terminated. But now you've got to be really careful because if it's a contractor or any agent of the school, and that's your contract people like speech, pathology, that type of thing. So that's under A. And then no non-school social media, that's completely prohibited. And that's also stressed in policy 7335. No non-school social media. the changes. Okay.
Non-school social media. Example?
Texting with the students outside of school hours. Snapchat, where you're friends with kids that where you're receiving and sending messages back and forth outside
Of a
of school
personal
hours.
nature.
Period.
Well, it's no non-school social media. We don't do Snapchat, chat. I mean, schools don't. Schools are not on employees are not on non-school social media. With students.
So Instagram or,
Yeah.
They shouldn't be sending out a message at 5 o'clock in the afternoon to students on their social media.
Voicemail, email, texting, if it's not school
Not
related.
school related.
that's what I'm saying.
Exactly. I mean, if you're a coach, if you're
If you're a
sending out
coach.
a remind message that, hey, practice has changed from 5 to 5:30, that's school related and it's something that is part of your school responsibility. That is always something though that is transparent, that is always available for anyone to read.
And that was that was clear in your current policy. Okay. And it'll remain clear. All right, here comes the big face coverings. The General Assembly, and that's why we were required to do either resolutions or policies, or a policy regarding face coverings. We all started doing resolutions because they had to be reviewed every 30 days. So now the requirement is a policy. You must adopt a policy regarding face coverings for employees and students. And before, there was so much discussion of students. So in this policy from the General Assembly, the board is committed to providing in-person learning. So that's the goal. In the legislative history is to stay in-person learning. Okay. So based on the Centers for Disease Control, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the Occupational Health and Safety Administration, and the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services, face coverings are recommended in school. So we're looking at option A. Okay. You have two policies in there. There's option A and option B. So I just read that from option A. So students, employees, visitors, regardless of vaccination status. We're not getting into asking people about it. The General Assembly doesn't expect you to ask people about their vaccination status. But students, employees, visitors, in school buildings or on school transportation vehicles must wear a mask. You are not required to wear a face covering while outdoors or while in personal vehicles or school grounds. However, masks must be worn in crowded outdoor settings. I think that may address something you were talking about. Or during activities that involve sustained close contact with other people. And this is going to require a lot of your staff to use their judgment. Is the outdoor setting a crowded outdoor setting, or is there sustained close contact with other people? Now, there are individual under B1, there's some exceptions, and there's always been those. Okay. Then C is proper face covering. D is failure of the wearer face covering. I think E is very important. It's notice and providing guidance. The schools require to help parents, employees, and anyone involved in the school to understand policy. Then this policy, they've changed that every 30 days. You know, it used to be, that made it sort of tough. You would all make a special session or something, maybe more than 30 days. What it is now is just once a month. So you'll be covering this policy once a month. So that's a good change. Now, the General Assembly recognizes that while school boards should be following the CDC, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the Occupational Health and Safety Administration, and the North Carolina Health Department, Health and Human Services, the General Assembly does recognize that boards can vote for masks as an option. So students, well, boards should encourage students, employees, and visitors to follow those organizations. The board can decide that face coverings are not mandated inside of school buildings at this time. So they're putting a little bit, if the board goes with option B, you're having to put in there that you don't have a choice. You have to put in there all these organizations. And the reason for that is the need for limiting quarantine. But they're allowing the board to provide an exception at this time in school buildings. However, you're never allowed to accept out school buses or other school transportation. So if the board went with B, you still, face masks, face coverings are mandated on school buses and other school transportation.
So this is
With
mandated.
A, it's in there, I mean, no board can eliminate, no board can eliminate that. So that will bring you current with what you've always been current when you have policy in place, but now the General Assembly's mandating policy regarding these, and the contents of it are those health organizations and the way to wear face coverings. If a board doesn't mandate it this time, you still got to do it for school buses and school transportation, and recognize that it is in opposition to those four organizations. Okay. So that is the latest with face coverings. You know, it's the best you all are going to do. Yeah, I mean, it changes frequently, and that's why we're going to be reviewing it every 30 days. This new information comes in.
So it's my understanding that at this board meeting, they need to make a decision whether y'all can continue as we are or to change direction.
And you do that under, you adopt an emergency. Usually your usual procedure is you look over policies for 2 board meetings. But you did adopt an emergency procedure to do it in the first meeting and then also continue that review in the second meeting. And you have to do this one today, the 30 days, the 30 days.
Is it clear?
Well, once a month, which is important.
So if I could make my statement with whatever y'all decide, as a superintendent looking at the data from the time that you started the mask mandate, which the first set of information you got was September 14th. My recommendation as superintendent would be for this month to continue the mask mandate, as we have seen some decline in our cases. Whether we can attribute this to masks or not, I don't have the scientific data myself, nor am I medically inclined enough to be able to tease out whether or not that was the only factor. But I will say I do feel like I have watched the numbers decline, and we went in the way that we were wanting to do, given the mask mandate. I would hate at this point to change that and watch numbers go back up. I have spoken with the health director this morning. Her recommendation would be to, at this point, and review again next month, her recommendation would be to continue. That's just for your information. I don't have a vote. Nurse Odom, I don't put you on the spot, but I do look for you for medical expertise. So what will be your recommendation based on what you see on a daily basis?
Since the mask mandate, our kids are in school, and that is really what we're trying to accomplish here, is keeping these kids in school. Because as you said, some kids don't have what they need at home to be able to learn anyways.
And our most important thing is to keep children in school.
And that's what the General Assembly is saying, which is quite different from what they were saying
Right.
in June, I mean, 4 months ago. It's quite different.
But the vote and the discussion lies with the board, that's just the input from the superintendent and the board.
The other important thing, though, is that in the face covering requirements, it is permissible not to be worn in certain situations. And I want you to look at B2. One of those is 20 feet. Like in this audience, I hope I took off my mask. It is difficult to talk long-term or with a mask on, but there is a 20-foot permission. And even the Department of Health and Human Resources has stated they're not married to the 20-foot, but it could be adjusted. However, that's what the General Assembly is recommending. If you're in a meeting and in a situation where you have that 20 feet, you could take it back.
And that was
Even with the mandate of mask covering, there are exceptions. And one of them is you can create a situation where there's 20 feet.
And that was pulled out, that was actually pulled out of the toolkit, I think, pretty sure. And also what I was talking about, was outdoor settings.
Yeah, that is pulled out, that's what it says.
They actually are addressing that, correct? They are addressing.
So the General Assembly adopted those parts, which the General Assembly would be quite a long ways in this. Okay, attendance.
So do we need to have that discussion right now and settle whether or not.
Okay, well, yeah, we do need to do your emergency vote. We'll still have this on for next month just to keep with you.
And then we'll get to your attendance policy.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask the principals how things are going in the schools? Would you all like the mask, how do you think they're going?
I mean, obviously the numbers are down and our kids are really good about wearing them in class. We hand out about 100 every morning at the front door as kids come in and, they wear them all day, except the lunchroom and PE. And the numbers are down. I mean, I'm not just I'm no expert, but we've got very few cases.
Something working.
Something has helped.
Something
We
working.
didn't have any spread last year when kids were wearing masks, so, I think it works for kids, every now and then we have to remind them to pull them up, but they're very cooperative and,
Do I like it? I don't think any of us do.
Well, I'm saying-
We don't, but I think it is helpful.
It's super.
It is the elementary school.
For the most part at the elementary school, the children do very well wearing it. Occasionally we have some resistance, but it's not the norm. And they do pretty good wearing them. When you're thinking about these outdoor settings and addressing those issues, I would ask that you consider this affects the elementary school maybe even a little bit more than it does the other schools because we have recess. And we do recess sometimes as multiple classrooms or things like that, or even a grade level on the playground.
Especially now that you don't have a gym.
Especially now that we're down the gym, we have, sometimes we'll have a grade level on the playground for recess and at least half of the grade level, if not a full grade level, split between the baseball field and the football field or whatever if the day's pretty. Because it allows the children to get outside. It allows them, with the way that we have it now, where they don't have to wear their masks outside during their school day. And that's what we've been doing, and we're seeing these numbers go down. It gives them a good way to have a mask break and almost some normal socialization and some normal snippets of time during their day. So when we start talking about this outdoor space thing, if we're talking about mass gatherings like extracurricular activities or something like that, then I think that's a different thing. But I do want you to just kind of use some caution when you're talking about that as far as observing it within the regular school day, because that could inadvertently affect my children at recess or my children during PE, depending on how that outdoor part is worded. But I think as long as when we're under the tools for schools and we're using that as our resource or our guide with what we're required to do, having mask to mask and Nurse Carly not being required to shut down the classroom because of 2 positive kids, it's making a huge difference.
Okay, as your chairman, because of the county health director, Beth Booth's recommendation, and our superintendent, Ms. Knight's recommendation, do I hear a motion to continue with the mask mandate for at least 1 more month?
Pursuant to policy 4231.
Pursuant to policy 4231. Do I have a second?
I would second, but I'd like to see us go back to normal.
Yeah, I would too. I would too. I definitely would too. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? All opposed? Okay, so that means I have to vote. We have a 2-2 tie, and I will vote that we continue the way we are now for at least 1 more month, because the numbers are so good and our kids are in school.
Okay, and I would hope that when we come back together next month, we can look at something different. Nobody likes this. Nobody likes it.
I just add that I think it's real important to keep it in consideration after the kids go home for the holidays.
Yeah.
To look at requiring masks after they come back. Because that seems to be where the spread's happening. It's not happening in school.
Yeah.
According to the science group, that is where the spread's happening. Because to answer your question, Ms. Silver, to your concern, we do know in school, student to student or student to teacher transmission, and it is in the science group, is extremely low when they are in a school setting. Because we're catching them not coming to school sick, they're not coming to school sick, so it's very low, so I don't think that's something we need to worry about.
Right, but I think as far, what I was meaning is as far as we're under the guidance of if we're not mask to mask, we have to do the close contact tracing, and it puts more children in quarantine. At least at the current time, not having to do that is keeping those quarantine numbers down. I hope I'm saying that correctly.
Yes.
Okay,
It's not about mask merchandise, it's about, as long as we have mask on mask, the quarantine doesn't sneak up in kids. We can keep all kids in school. So that's the importance of the mask. It doesn't matter if you're or not. It's just that's the guidelines we're given that we have to go by. And it's keeping our kids in school.
And like Carly said that too, the goal is to have school, that's what we want, we want kids in school.
But it is a recommendation, not a mandate.
Okay, attendance, policy 4400. This is one that has been almost completely rewritten. And part of the reason is generally, it's no longer a temporary rule for attendance on remote instruction days. The attendance, A's been completely rewritten to include remote instruction days. Doesn't make any difference if it's COVID, it's for any other reason. So again, there's a little more flexibility about the definition of attendance. So it's very important to look at A, it's completely rewritten. B, late arrivals and early departures is completely rewritten. And D is substantially rewritten. And E, F, and G are completely rewritten. So I'll get a copy of this to Mr. Moody too.
And we'd like to just give out the principals so that they can look over this and.
Right, I think it's important. And I think it gives the, when the principals look at it, we need to make it applicable to our school and make it work. So there is some room for maneuvering. Okay. 7720, employee political activity. First paragraph is rewritten, and the last paragraph is rewritten. And it does not preclude the employee from participating in political activity. It's just that it doesn't take place during work hours. And it used to, policies like attendance would say, use the word school day or school hours. That could be confusing. Work hours may be quite different from the usual 8 to 3 or 8 to 4. Because school attendance is quite flexible across the state in terms of not so much the standard day in every school. It can involve system funds or materials. It cannot make use of an official school position to encourage or coerce students, employees, or others to support or oppose the political party. It used to just say employees, but you have contractors, you have agents, etc. So, then what's new is in the last paragraph is employees being mindful of not teaching their personal political views in the classroom. Okay, policy 7900, resignation. It clarifies that whether it's a professional employee or classified employee, it must be in writing. And professional employees it should be done as soon as possible. There's still a requirement of at least 30 days. Under both of employee and classified, it can be a shorter notice provided the superintendent consents. If you'll go to C for all employees, the exit interview, that is optional. It's not required for the public body to do exit interviews. But you can leave that in there if you want to, because it's made that you're not requiring everyone to do it, or you could change it to require everyone to do it.
Sometimes an employee is not available to have an exit interview,
So,
nor do they wish to participate in one.
right. And so this is, I think, my recommendation would leave it negative. All right, limited claims settlement policy 8341. The reason that has been substantially rewritten is that every accident that occurs in school is not lawful. The board, as the board, not any other faculty member, there's a procedure for settlement of certain claims. And I'll use something, a student is shoved in the gym and his glasses are broken. The school can, and they're specialized, there was actually a situation, there were specialized classes, they were $800, and a family with not means to routinely replace that kind of visual assistance. So a school could pay that, but what schools are getting in trouble with, if you go to see, is the factors. So these are the not using factors with each situation, the same factors with each situation, something you want to pay for that occurred in a school, again, on a school campus. So if you go to C, that's completely rewritten, and it's the factors you must use in deciding whether the school is responsible for settling that claim. Okay, so just look at C very carefully, and they're required. So what you would do is just address all 10 of them in any evaluation of the claim. So, okay, that concludes the policies or changes in the meetings.
And that's first reading.
That's first reading.
And I have something about attendance. Are we counting our students absent if they have COVID or quarantine?
The health department contacts me with all the kids that are school age that are quarantined, and then I relay the information to the teachers. And then it is marked as 1B, which is the quarantine phase of high school. So it is excused. But it has to come through the health department in order for it to be excused.
Okay, so it's an excused absence or it's an excused, the quarantine is an excuse. Okay.
And that's what's in here too. They added the local health officer being authorized to do an excuse absence. They added that.
Do I have a motion to go into closed session?
Pursuant to the provisions of North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11, parentheses A, parentheses 3, and 143-318.11, parentheses C, I move the Graham County Board of Education go into closed session to receive advice from Ms. Ellen Davis, attorney for Graham County Board of Education, which advice comes within the purview of the attorney-client privilege. This advice will be general legal advice about legal issues or legal matters. Pursuant to the provision of the North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11, parentheses C, I move that the Graham County Board of Education go into closed session for the purpose of considering personnel matters as defined in and allowed by the North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11, parentheses A, parentheses 6, and North Carolina General Statute 115C-321.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? We are now in closed session. Action items, Ms. Knight.
Yes, I recommend that you employ Shelby Anderson in the position of teacher assistant.
Do I have a motion to employ Shelby Anderson as a teacher assistant?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed?
I recommend that you employ Jake Beasley in the position of varsity golf coach.
Do I have a motion to employ Jake Beasley as varsity golf coach?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay.
I recommend that you employ the following substitutes: Macy Odom, Maggie Wright, and Chloe Hyde.
Do I have a motion to employ substitutes Macy Odom, Maggie Wright, and Chloe Hyde?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Okay.
I recommend that you employ the following list of 21st century tutors. And Ms. Beasley, I'll be glad to give you this list later, but I'll go ahead and name them: Rick Parham, Sherry Williams, Dale Wiggins, Shay Mullinax, Ellen Woods, Miranda Buchanan, Carla Jones, Crystal White, and Mike Upright.
Do I have a motion to approve these 21st century tutors after school, the list that Ms. Knight just read? Do I have a motion?
Approved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Okay.
And I recommend that you approve the following two volunteers: Cody Wilson and Macy Rogers.
Do I have a motion to approve volunteers Cody Wilson and Macy Rogers?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Okay. Any announcements, Ms. Knight?
I will announce that we did receive a $5,000 grant from the the Great Smokies Health Foundation for our wellness program. So I'm excited to get that started and see what we can do with that to help our staff be better with their health, so that we can help our students have their health as well. And additionally, your next board meeting will be a regularly scheduled meeting on November the 3rd at 10 a.m. Excuse me, November 2nd.
Yes.
It's not on the wellness, thing, are you giving points if they get like different things?
I am not, the way that this is designed, because last time points, really ended up being a competition of a few people. So I am distributing money per school for them to have a wellness team and decide how they want to do. If they want to do points at their school, then that's fine with me. But some of the money will be distributed for each school per month, and some of the money will be kept at the district level to the district official.
I think it really encourages some great health ethics, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and that's what they choose, is their health committee, that's fine. Just from the district level, I want everybody to participate. And sometimes when you do points, you feel like if you don't do something, then you just quit. And I want them to be able to jump on and jump off when they want to, and I'd rather them do something than nothing.
Okay.
It's kind of where I'm at, so they may choose to do differently at the school levels.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So then,
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
I see me. Pressure off.
you know,
Yeah.